Hello everybody, Razorblade Mango here, and this is Horizon Zero Dawn, which is the latest game from Sony Interactive and Guerrilla Games, and one of the biggest, most anticipated, not only exclusives of this year, but one of the biggest console releases of this generation so far. And to be perfectly honest, I was a little concerned about this game initially when I started to actually play it. I got a little taste of it at PlayStation Experience, and the demo didn't really do anything or didn't really do this game justice because it only set you in this really small area, and you had to basically only do like this little laundry list of stuff. That's all you could do. It wasn't a mission per se, or even a side mission. It was just one of these custom errands from the game, which did not make for a good, really great first impression or analysis of what the game was going to be like. And as I said, I was really worried with the first couple of hours of this game, which I don't think are all that good. They're okay, and they're rather plain for something great that I expected from this. And what I mean by that is the beginning opens up with just this rather generic storyline. The world itself really is not all that memorable, in my opinion. I didn't really care about any of the characters. There's this really obvious, predictable scene that happens where it's meant to have this big emotional impact on you, and I sat there and it never elicited any kind of response from me. I just kind of sat there and shrugged my shoulders and just went, okay, I knew that was going to happen, and I guess that's how this game is going to go. But once you leave the opening area, which takes about it took about 4 hours for me to do, my opinion of this game dramatically improved. And I've put about over 24 hours into this game so far. And I don't even think I'm at the halfway point of the story or the main campaign, because I've just been running around engaging in the combat, clearing out some of the bandit camps, doing some of the side missions just so I could level up Aloy a lot to deal with the really powerful stuff you gotta deal with in the main missions. So after 24 hours of playing this game, I can confidently say that this is one of the very best PlayStation 4 exclusives available on the market right now. This is a damn well-crafted game, technically polished, bursting with lots of activity. And I'm not just talking about the unfortunate collectathon elements that this game has. I'm talking about really decently meaty side quests and fun challenges, and the overall backbone of the game, which is the combat, is so great that simply dicking around in this world is fun. And that's, to me, that's the sign of a truly special open world game, where I don't feel like I need to be constantly looking for missions in order to have fun. I feel like I can just walk around in this world and will consistently find interesting things or engage in really compelling activities that aren't structured behind side quests or collectathon elements. Now, this game is about a woman named Aloy, and she lives in this practically like a post-apocalyptic future on Earth, where 1,000 years ago humanity was wiped out, but they've sort of regressed back to this hunter-gatherer society 1,000 years into the future, where instead of mostly flesh-based animals, you have these animal machines running around, like these like gazelles or crocodiles or birds, and it's just this large ecosystem of machine animals that is really interesting to discover where they came from, why they're here. And the story is pretty much all about Aloy, who is an outcast in her society for unknown reasons. Her wanting to be accepted, and her fighting against impossible odds to earn her superiors' respect and to prove to herself that she can be this really powerful figure and not need anyone else. And just this mystery of who she is, who her mother was in this matriarch-based society. And that's all I'm going to say about the story, specific-wise, because it's better if you just play the game and figure out what's going to happen from there. But suffice to say, once you leave that opening area, the game's story gets a lot more interesting, and you meet unexpected characters. You actually grow to give a shit about some of them, which, you know, for me is always nice. And by the end of like this really long main mission series of main missions that you have to do revolving around like the big central hub city in the game, I felt like I had actually made a difference in this world. To me, it gave me that same feeling that Titanfall 2 did, where I felt good about not only about my character but about myself, because I felt like I was actually this important person in the world. And that's a great feeling to have. That's just so unmatched in so many just open world games and games in general. Shit. And it helps too that Aloy is a really good character. I'm not sure she's quite going to be this big PlayStation icon that they're going for, like Nathan Drake or Ratchet or Kratos, but she is a compelling character, particularly when you can occasionally decide what you're going to do with the dialogue options. And it's not a very deep, robust dialogue system. It's very, it's divided basically into 3 bits where you can, you know, give like a loving, caring answer, an intelligent answer, or you can just be a dickhead. And mainly I went with the intelligent answers, but sometimes, occasionally, I will go for the more kind, heartwarming answers. And that's cool that they have these options. And speaking of that, this is a really strange game, in the sense that it takes a lot of elements from a lot of other different games that could have easily have been this bland, boring mess. It takes elements from Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Witcher, Far Cry, and like a ton of other stuff. Like, not only just games, but like company-based philosophies. Like, unfortunately, it does take a little bit too much from the Ubisoft school of open world design, which at this point is just so... Most of their stuff is so boring to me that I'd wish they had leaned a little less heavy on that. It does occasionally dip into the boring collectathon stuff, but in other situations, you will find the radio towers from your average Ubisoft game, which are basically these giant giraffe-like creatures called tall necks that you have to scale in order to unlock certain points on the map. And even then, it takes a twist on it. Not only it won't tell you specifically what activities you've unlocked. The game leaves you for that to discover. But it also, every time you have to scale one of these tall necks, it presents a unique challenge. And I'm not just talking about like the radio towers in Far Cry 4, where like a beehive will occasionally pop up, or you'll have to do like these really awkward platforming sections, or first-person platforming sections in those games. But there was a point where in order to get on top of a tall neck's back and survive, I had to take out this bandit camp that had surrounded it, or I had to take out 2 alligator type creatures in order to have room and survive jumping on the tall neck. And I've only encountered 3 so far, but each one has presented a unique challenge. One is like the tutorial one, and the other 2, it's more challenging to unlock that. And it feels better once you've done it, because it felt like you actually conquered this great challenge, and that's great. I think that's a big improvement on what Ubisoft does. Also takes elements from Monster Hunter in terms of the combat. Dark Souls even in some situations, particularly some of the really tough bosses and enemy encounters later on. And even some of the ones you just find wandering around in the wilderness, in the sense that it presents you with a lot of different options. And this is what's so great about the combat. Why the backbone of it works so well and makes this game so addicting and makes it worth like the 40, 50 plus hours you can put into this fucking thing. It basically gives you like a lot of options, and you have another thing it takes from another game it borrows from, which is Batman Arkham series, where Aloy has this like focus. She basically has detective mode, where you click R3 and you can actually scan the environment around you, and you can actually see which machines are in your vicinity, and you can scan their strengths and weaknesses, and you can actually plan accordingly. You can equip your items with different arrows that are matched by what the monster's weaknesses are. Bombs, tripwire, like that bit in the E3 demo where she took down the T-Rex with the rope caster thing. That's possible, and even then that has different elements to it, which makes it more strategic and fun. And it does that in a way where even if you know their weaknesses, it won't be a walk in the park, because you're going to have to consistently find a way to like dodge their moves or disable certain components that they have that give them extra powers, like projectile attacks and ramming attacks. So there's that element too. And all in all, it creates this combat system that's more like a dance than it is, you know, just stand here, shoot people, end of story. And because, and the game's rather tough, even on normal difficulty, if you aren't careful, average enemies, like these like little, like the weakest enemies in the game are these things called Watchers. And they're pretty easy to take on if you know what you're doing. But if you just stand there like an idiot, you can get killed in like 2 or 3 hits. Like, these Watchers won't fuck around. They'll come after you and whoop your ass if you aren't careful. And if you aren't stupid. And if you're stupid. So, which brings me into one of the few big complaints I have about the game. Which is, I think the game relies a little too much on fighting human enemies. And occasionally it can be fun. But most of the time, they're just rather boring compared to the machines, and they take a ridiculous amount of health. Like, for example, I think it's bullshit that if you shoot like 3 arrows into a human's head and they won't die, to me that just breaks the game logic and turns it into a fucking chore at that point. And fighting human enemies to me just really isn't that fun most of the time, particularly when they bring in the annoying ass heavy set enemies that are bosses or sub bosses that have these big fucking machine guns that will just kill you in 2 hits. That to me gets irritating until you unlock the ability to kill one of them with 1 hit with a silent strike. Until then, you're stuck kind of just hiding from them and trying to cheese them or whatever, and it's not that great. But fighting machines, awesome. The core concept of the game works extremely well, and I loved it. And another thing that I think is really great about this game is the crafting system and the scavenging, which to me, when I hear a game has survival elements in it, I kind of groan a lot these days because I don't find that all that compelling. But the way they've done it in Horizon Zero Dawn, I think, is really good because, first of all, basic supplies like health medicine or fast travel packs, and yes, you need packs, you need a currency in order to do fast travels, which is kind of irritating. A lot of those are plentiful. The stuff that's required to make basic arrows and even most of the elemental stuff, you can easily find just walking in the environment and gathering the roots and the plants that you'll come across. So that's not a problem to me. It's not like a lot of these areas are a grind to get through, which could have very easily been a problem, but it never is, thankfully. But I like how quick it is. I like how if you need a specific item, that the game will actually allow you to create these custom errands where it will tell you on the screen what you need, and it will give you like a base of where you need to go to get it. That's great. I think more games need to do that. And I like how it never really overwhelms you with crafting elements. Like, sure, you need certain arrows, you need certain things to take down enemies, but the game never forces you to do it. The game never goes, hey, you need this. It never, like, tugs on your arm at all times like an annoying kid. It never goes, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to watch your health. Hey, you need to watch your stamina and shit like that, which thankfully this does not have a stamina bar. Thank God. And that's good. To me, that makes the adventure more fun. If I'm not constantly being harassed in order to get stuff that I'm going to need later on. Like, the game lets you make your own mistakes, which is great. And that's the sign of a game that respects the player's intelligence. It's not constantly holding their hand in the sense of guiding them to where to go at all times. Like, if you fuck up, it feels a lot of the time like that was your error. Arrow. That's a... Bow and arrows in this game are awesome. So, it's good. It's a good survival and crafting system that's never annoying, never gets on my nerves, and feels plentiful. And even if you don't want to go out into the wilderness to collect stuff, you can just buy it from the merchants for really cheap. A lot of the metal shards you find around the environment are plentiful, so you'll have plenty of currency to go to the vendors and get stuff. And even if you don't want to make health potions, you can just buy them from the vendor as well. You can get any kind of arrow you want without crafting it. All these options are here outside of combat to make for a smoother, more enjoyable experience. And while I do have certain problems, I'm not crazy about the way the game handles the platforming sometimes. I think most of the time it's really good, but sometimes it can be a little janky. I don't like the turret enemies, as I mentioned. I think they can get irritating. And I guess that's just the backbone of the game. It just works so well. This game is beautiful. Let me talk about that too before I forget. This game is fucking amazing to look at. And when they initially talked about, like, during like the week before this game was announced, I mean before it launched, when Sony, ended the review embargo, like right there, where people could talk about this game for like a week before it came out, which to me is the sign of like a really confident publisher, and that's great. That's what gave me more hope in this game. Also, when it was being talked about, people were like, oh, well, this photo mode is amazing. This is the best photo mode ever made. We used photo mode so many times. We used 40 fucking times this photo mode. It's great. You're going to love it. And I figured that was just a bunch of PR hype bullshit. But I gotta tell you guys, I've been using photo mode a lot in this game. And yes, it is the best photo mode ever released for a game. It has so many options. It can change the time of day, which I think is the biggest addition to this. I can't think of any other game that does that, where you can actually change the time of day in a shot if you want to get like the clouds or the sun piercing through a mountain valley just right. It's so many different options, so cool, and I loved using it because the world of this game looks just wow. Look at it. It looks amazing, and it's not just, you know, and it's cool that it doesn't stick to one type of area. It's not just grass the whole way through. It's multiple different geographies that combine into this singular, interesting world where they naturally transition from one to another, and it's fucking beautiful. There were times where I literally just had to stop and stare out into the sunset or stare at this canvas. And of course I would use photo mode and get a picture of it, and it was fucking amazing. But still, like, even now, after 24 hours into it, I'm still consistently blown away by how good this game looks. And that's something. However, not everything is perfect. I think, aside from the already custom-built cutscenes, I think a lot of the lip syncing is really bad sometimes. It looks downright creepy, the way these characters' mouths move sometimes, especially when it doesn't seem like they're opening their mouths all the way. It's like their lips are moving, but their teeth are kind of glued together. It's a really odd effect that kind of takes me out of the game a little bit. But other than that, this game is a looker. Beautiful character models, great environment detail, very subtle details in the areas. I love just how you can find like the snowfall in the game, your footprints on the ground. I've seen like ants in trees at some points, like little details they did not need to go to, but work that much harder in this cohesive whole to sell you on how awesome this world is. And another thing I like about this game, if we're going to get into the politics spectrum, or the social commentary spectrum, which, whatever, might as well go there. I love how this game really bucks a lot of the trends I've seen in a lot of open world games. I guess I'll compare it to Watch Dogs, the original one, where Watch Dogs I felt like was such a fucking like sexist, racist piece of shit, where it just soaked in this really nasty, bitter brine of white male cynicism. Just so heinous, such a heinous and ugly fucking game. Whereas this one, I feel like, I mean, it helps, of course, and not every game that stars a woman in it is going to be great, but I feel like Aloy is an interesting enough character where she has flaws. She can sometimes be a little too sarcastic. Sometimes you might not even like her, but she is a really cool character. And I love how Guerrilla has built this society, like this matriarchal society, instead of like this usual male-dominated thing, where it reminded me a lot of Fury Road, the Mad Max movie, where it's like the women are just as powerful, if not more so, than the men. I mean, like most of the really powerful figures I can think of in this game are fucking like are women. They're super awesome, powerful women. I fucking love that, and I love that Guerrilla decided to go with this after like years of publishers telling people, oh, you can't make a game with a woman in it. But I think with the success, thankfully, of stuff like The Last of Us and Bioshock Infinite and Life is Strange, that we're finally getting to this point where, you know, Yes, you can have a woman as your lead character in your game. I don't give a damn what these like focus tested fuckboys tell you. They are fucking lying. Women can sell a game. Take this as definitive proof, because this opened with like the biggest PlayStation launch for a new IP in like this decade, or I think like ever, and that's awesome to hear that. I love that. So now that I'm getting off my political high horse, how is the game overall? And my answer to that is it's fucking great. I think it might be my favorite thing released so far this year. Definitely going to be a cream of the crop contender. I'm not sure how it stacks up against Resident Evil 7. I got to think about that some more. But it's a triumph. And this is coming from Guerrilla, who I'm not even that crazy about to begin with. Like, I don't like the Killzone games. I particularly hated Shadowfall. But here they've done something that's definitely geared more towards me, where I can appreciate it, given that I'm a big fan of open world games and RPGs, and they've managed to make a really damn great one. So I'm excited to see what they do next. If they're going to continue with Horizon, I mean, I assume so, because it's, you know, Sony wants a franchise out of this. But I'm glad this didn't turn into another Order 1886 situation, where pretty much what you see in that open, aside from like the difficulty being scaled down and a lot of the UI changes, it basically is what we got from that very first trailer that we saw. Like, a lot of the way that combat looks and feels is exactly how it is in the game. And that's rare. That's a fucking accomplishment within itself in this industry of bullshots and lying. So that's great. So yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, available now on PlayStation 4. And all the footage you're seeing is from the regular PS4 edition, standard PS4, and it runs extremely well on the standard PS4, which is a relief, because I was worried this was going to turn into another new Nintendo 3DS situation, where games coming out on both would run noticeably worse on the older console. So, thank God. Alright. Thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Horizon Zero Dawn. Leave it in the comments. I might have a spoiler cast for this, as both a friend and I got it same day, so we might do a spoiler cast for this. No promises, but hopefully we can work that out. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one, everyone.